And I wrote these 8 rules for myself. And literally rule number 1 was it's okay to ask for help. And, there's a caveat with it's not okay to be helpless. And you're not helpless if you've, thought about it. You've kind of, toiled with it in your mind a little bit. Maybe you've looked into a few different places. You're not helpless. You're just saying, all right, I don't have the answer. Let me ask for help.
Welcome to the On the Path podcast, a conversation on navigating life. Join Chris Coker and Colin Chris as they have honest conversations with fellow travelers on the path. In each episode, they explore the physical, mental, and spiritual health aspects of the whole self, striving for personal accountability and a strong community. Gain insights, learn from our mistakes, and hear from guests who have mastered these areas. Step on the path, embracing every challenge and success along the way. See you on the path.
We are back on the path. It's been a minute since we've done a debrief, and obviously we were going to talk about it, but there's been a lot of life changes for you. There's been a lot of life changes for me, and you purposely decided to use your really good camera today as I'm traveling for work and on my computer. So in the military, it's called a Blue Falcon, which is actually a very high honor that is now being bestowed upon you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah, I appreciate it. But no, we're doing our debrief episode for Bill. And I have to say, this was a very special one for me because as growing up in Texas, our families were very close, Bill and our family. And I always had grown up just viewing him as an adult, right? There was never a friendship or there was never a mentorship. And it was 2 years ago, my dad, said, let's get drinks with Bill and his son. And I've always been friends with his son too. And it just clicked in this moment, especially in my life now, post the military and corporate America. I was like, this guy my whole view of this individual changed. And it was really this awakening. And then I've had multiple different, happy hours with Bill where Jesus, it's like an onion. It's just every time I pull back a different layer, I'm like, I literally told him this. Every time it's a different layer of an onion or it's this another level of awakening on my part. I don't know. I'm probably still, when you just cleaning off the top side of this onion, there's so many layers I haven't gotten to yet. And he is just an awesome individual. He really has, a lot of life experience that helped him shape his own philosophy and really helping others. And I was glad you got to meet him, and he really helped kind of shape up and clean up the last parts of our methodology to really make this podcast even more successful and clear to what it is today. But what was your experience with him, getting to meet him and then instantly getting 3 hours of feedback on all that hard work we put into the podcast, which wasn't blowing it up, but it was like we had to get a little deeper into what we were doing.
No, that was, he's one of those people that I'm just very grateful to have met. Now I've had the pleasure of speaking with several times and it was incredible sitting down with him. And to your point, Colin, we started with a discussion on like just refining where we were going with the podcast, just kind of still in the brainstorm mode, talking to some of our confidants on how do we want things to change or how do we want things to shape up for the show. And then, after that, the first couple of conversations with him, it was very clear he needed to be on the show because he's just got a lot to share. So Bill, you're the man.
He is the man. He's on a journey. But it is also his last name is Bill Journey. So it's the best last name ever.
We have a show called On the Path. We can't not have a guy named Bill Journey on the path. So
it really is, and then it really is. It really works out. But I think one of the very first things that we really took away from this episode was this concept that we've even talked about ourselves. It's so hard to ask for help sometimes. But when you really just break down that thought, it's if you don't know, it's okay to ask for help.
That's right. It's okay to ask for help. And it's something, I appreciate that he called that out in the episode because although it's something, at face value, I'm like, okay, well, duh. But when you're actually in the thick of it, that's just not how a lot of us are wired. I know that's not how you're wired, Colin, and really not me either. Like, it's like I will allow it to get to a point where I'm like kind of in trouble before I ask for help. And it's not always like, we have, varying stories with this particular topic in mind. And sometimes it's not even like that. It's not even that big of a deal, right? It's like a work thing where I'm like, no, I don't want to burden anybody else. I'm going to try to exhaust every resource I have before I go and ask for help. And then next thing you know, I've like slowed the project down by a week or two because I just wasn't, I didn't have the humility to just ask for help initially. So to hear that come from somebody like Bill was just reassuring, I think. So for me, that was a huge takeaway. But what did you think?
I think for me, especially, a couple years ago, and it's just been a journey since that I realized, and I wrote these 8 rules for myself, and literally rule number 1 was it's okay to ask for help. And, there's a caveat with it's okay. It's not okay to be helpless. And you're not helpless if you've, thought about it. You've kind of, toiled with it in your mind a little bit. Maybe you've looked into a few different places. You're not helpless. You're just saying, all right, I don't have the answer. Let me ask for help. And literally, I remember 2 weeks ago, I was getting ready to have a meeting, and I called you, and I was like, Chris has just got a different way of approaching things. I was like, let me ask Chris for his advice. You gave me advice, and I was like, well, I hate that advice. And then I thought about it. I was like, well, your approaches are working, Colin. Maybe just apply those things that your friend gave you as advice. It's not like anything's going to blow up. It's just a conversation. And it was literally the perfect approach. And that's where it's okay to ask for help. You don't have all the answers. No one does. Yeah. So if you've got that trusted, strong community, sometimes asking for help will give you multiple different answers that also could all be different ways to look at it and really help you solve whatever the problem is in your life.
Yeah, I agree. And I love that you called out community, because I will say, like, we have these people in our corner that are uniquely suited. We all have our gifts, right? And we all have our strengths, and we're all different. And
You're
I can tell
gifted.
you,
You're so gifted. You're so special.
Thank you. Thank you. This is why I keep you in my corner, because I like to be, reaffirmed from time to time. But these people that are in our corner, like they're varied for a reason. We this opposites attract is sometimes a thing. And so I guess what I'm getting at here is, like, go to the people that you think really can help you in that moment. Because I will say, Colin, to your credit, I think you were asking for my advice because this is one of those moments where you were like Chris might shine in this particular scenario. Let's see what he might do. But there are other moments where where the coin is flipped, right? I know how you approach certain situations and circumstances. And there are moments where I'm going to come to you and say, I know that the Chris way, if you will, is not the right approach this time. Can you help me in your way? So I think this idea of community is important because it's an opportunity for us to just embrace the strengths in others and try to leverage them to our advantage when we can. And this, I just think it dovetails quite nicely to the importance of asking for help. So I think the first key learning for me is, one, ask for help. And then once you actually have the ability to ask for help, when you feel like you're in a good place being able to do that, take it a step further and then assess the people in your community, assess the people in your corner, and start thinking through, like, what are the types of areas where I would want to go to Colin or to Chris or to Bill for help? What are the areas they can help me in? Because the answer is probably different, across Colin, Chris, and Bill. It's probably a little different. So I like that you call out the community aspect, because I think that's a good way to just kind of graduate from simply asking for help to knowing who to ask for help from.
And I think we always, again, it's hard to ask for help, but we were just talking about it before we started recording. And I really enjoy it when you ask me for help, or other people that are in my strong community. And it's so funny because you enjoyed helping me, and it's just, they're going to appreciate you asking for help. It's just put your ego aside and have that conversation. And I really, really appreciated that little snippet we got from him. And he was using it in like a corporate setting where he's also like, I don't think everybody really knows what they're talking about. And that actually makes me feel better, because
yes,
this is really just sometimes just a facade of people covering up insecurities and not asking for help, or not asking those secondary, tertiary questions. And I think that really kind of transitions into a lot of just, who you are as a person. And Bill has created his methodology, and a lot of it, kind of comes through 3 aspects of how he broke out his own life, which one being why, what drives you, your purpose, what, it could, family, job, hobbies, those things that are very, not surface level, but those are the day-to-day things in the current state of life. And then the who, your worldview, your values, your experiences. And that's a lot of that can be shaped from your family, your upbringing, your life experiences. And I think that was such a great way. We were having a drink. I put my whole life through, his own methodology, but it also showed me, things that can be all over the place, and the importance of really understanding, who you want, who you are, what you are, and the why you're doing things, because that really helps you understand like the current state of your life and what got you here and where you're trying to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And the why, the what, the who, this idea of compartmentalizing, I think is really important so that you don't conflate those things, because I think when you conflate them, that's when you start running into problems, right? Like your job does not define who you are, because if you define who you are by your job, what happens when you get laid off from that job? All of a sudden, your whole world is turned upside down because you've now lost sight of who you are. So, and that's just, one quick little like snapshot example, but that's why I think it's so important to compartmentalize. And Bill, you spend 5 minutes with him, and you'll realize he's one of the most like self-aware people, very reflective. This is why, I won't speak for you, Bill, but I feel confident that I'm right here. But this is why your methodology is the way that it is. It's an opportunity for you to compartmentalize in your own life and also help others compartmentalize in theirs so that they can take deliberate steps in each of those three. And if I can, Colin, I want to just kind of move right into the third major takeaway, because I think it builds on this really perfectly. For me, he made the comment in the show, like, don't lose sight of who you are. And that to me is critically important. And it's an easy thing to do. It's much easier to say it than to do it. I actually think it's easy to lose sight of who you are because we all get busy with kids, with the job, with friends, with, home problems. Like who knows, right? Like the world is fast and complicated, and sometimes we can lose ourselves within that. And so keeping it top of mind to not lose sight of who we are, I think is critically important. And one of my favorite things about Bill, the way I could tell that he does this well and he lives into it, is because the first time I met him, after 30 minutes, I felt like I felt like I had known him for years and years, because he's so like crystal clear on who he is that he's able to articulate that very easily and very quickly to anybody else. So within minutes, I was like, wow, I know exactly who this guy is because he knows who he is. And I think that's a huge strength.
Yeah. I think I'm going to set you up for a story too, because of how we really got connected and how, back to the very first beginning of the first podcast, which, what is On the Path podcast, but it's so easy today in life. It's so fast paced. There's so much going on to lose sight of maybe where you're trying to go and just get overwhelmed with that day to day. And I think that was part of that key takeaway. And obviously what you picked up for him is he had that clarity. So that makes it so easy when life is overwhelming. There's family problems, there's work problems, you got to take your car into the shop too, but you got back-to-back meetings. How do you pull that off to just get overwhelmed? But if you have that North Star, and that's something we can't define on our podcast, but we're talking about the path, right? And he's on a journey on the path. But what are all those things that help you stay on the path? But the why, like where your purpose is so important, and not losing sight of it, because that'll be the thing that gets you through those difficult times. But, again, I was going to, try to get you to speak a little bit to it, but like we had gone through our own difficulties in life, and us coming together and, really understanding what was the thing that got us back onto the path. And then the purpose for you and the purpose for me are different, but these things keeping us on the path and then having that North Star are so critical to not losing sight.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll, so I think I know which story you're talking about when we were in Ithaca. Gosh, at this point, it was over a year ago, but
not yet.
A quick story.
We're almost there. Yeah, I think we're a month away. Okay. Yeah, we're under a year. We've done it. We did it.
But yeah, so I think the phrase that I used with you in Ithaca was don't underestimate the danger of unchecked mistakes. And I think that it is a perfect compliment to what Bill said about, don't forget who you are. Remember who you are. Like, really pay attention to who you are. Focus on that. There's this moment last year when I was going to a few different gyms. It's very, very active. My teenager had walked up to me one night, and we were talking about the gym. And he didn't even ask me whether or not he could go. He just simply said that, I'm not gonna go because I don't want to be in your way to the gym. And I remember that that hit me like a ton of bricks, because I had said that to him in the past. I had said no, I'm going to go to the gym. That's my time. And I just, I've been doing the gym thing for a long time. I don't want to have to teach anybody. You just kind of would be in the way. Like, I wasn't really rough about it, but I definitely made a mistake. And that went unchecked for a while until eventually my son, my own son, had internalized this idea that he can't come and conduct physical fitness with me because he would be in the way. Right. And to Bill's words, like, I did have kind of like this realization when I heard him say that, I'm only human. So what happened in reality is he kind of walked away. I went back to folding laundry, whatever I was doing. And then I had a chance to kind of think about it. So I went back to him later that night and said, hey, I would love for you to come to the gym with me, because it took a little bit of time for me to remember who I am. Like, I'm his dad. That's who I am. Like, I'm not what I do is go to the gym, but who I am is a dad that has 4 kids. And sometimes they look up to me to learn some of the things that I know how to do. So anyways, fast forward to today. Now he's more than happy to come to the gym with me whenever he wants, or if I'll invite him sometimes. And that to me is just kind of a perfect anecdote around why remembering who you are is so important. Because if you don't, those little mistakes can stack up, and they can have a real lasting impact on your relationships and your life.
I remember that. And that's one of those where also, if you didn't have that reflection, you didn't have that realization, I know it wasn't a fun moment too, because you realize there was nothing to you, right? It's like, hey, no, I'm on a mission. I'm going to the gym. But, that other important person in your life, and long term, I know for you, like, a big part of your why, your purpose is, well, I want to be a great dad. And also, I think a part of that is, I want my kids to talk to me after they leave the house too. Right. And those are such important times and such important moments. And again, don't lose sight of where you're going, because you're going to make mistakes along the way. No one's perfect. Unfortunately, I know you're an amazing, father. I know your spouse, she's incredible, but no one's perfect. And so if you make a mistake, that's where also don't lose sight of where you're going, and you have a chance, say, I'm sorry, redo things, reset the tone. And I think that's a great way to kind of end it with, again, don't lose sight of where you're going. It's a journey, and Bill's journey was such an incredible episode. I'm so grateful that I got to grow up with him and his family in my life. But now it's so incredible to see when you grow up, you realize the different other aspects of somebody. And it is so impressive what he's done. And I hope we have him on the podcast again too, because obviously he spent 3 hours really, really pressure testing what we had created. And I'm so glad we spent that time, because it really helped create a better product for us, and one that we will continue to refine. But I'm really proud of the whole self philosophy and the impact he had on it.
Oh, 100%. So Bill, once again, thank you so much for all of your help, your support, and for joining us on the show. For everybody listening, if you didn't have a chance to listen to the full episode, go back and listen to the episode. It's worth it. You can find it on all the places, Apple, Spotify. You can watch it on YouTube if you want to see the interview there. And then, of course, you can catch us on Instagram at OT Podcast. So be sure to follow along. And Colin, my friend, I'll see you on the path.
See you on the path.